Let's go back to 1998.
Okay.
How old are you when you start the band?
16.
Whoa.
Yeah, and man, you know when you're a kid and you're just kind of you have that like I don't fit in kind of thing.
Yes.
Um, it's a very common thing. I don't know if everyone goes through it, but I
I think
definitely
everyone
did.
goes through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone goes through it, and I found my place in the Buffalo hardcore scene, and I was so young, and everyone was it was so cool to me, and everyone was older than me, and it's just like I want to do that, I want to be them, I want to just, I really gravitated towards it. I loved it.
Mhm.
I liked the music. I loved the energy. I loved the community. I loved just the fact that it was like this underground like secret club almost, and I think
Mhm.
that's why most people try to gatekeep it, because you really did feel like you were a part of a special club when you went to your first hardcore show. Um, and I was lucky enough to start going at a really young age, and I had this conversation with my friend the other day about how like what were my parents thinking? Like, this was like pre cell phones, pre internet, just like dropping me off and like picking me up like 6 hours later. Like, this is insanity, but it all worked out. I guess if you can consider this working out, 43, still doing it.
Well, that's that. We talk about that a lot on this show because when I do music shows, I usually do it with another friend of mine who's the same age as me. I'm 47, and
Oh wow, you look
he's
great.
oh, thank you. He still tours, and I haven't. The last tour I did was 2019, and it was North America. It was U.S. and Canada, and I remember we were so mad at the headliner, and they got in an accident. They had their stuff in our van that
Ooh.
I was throwing their shit out in the street in New Mexico.
Pitching
And,
a
and
fit, you know?
and I was like, maybe I'm done with this bullshit at this age.
Yeah, yeah. But
Um,
it never gets easier. You just
no.
get better at dealing with the hard of it, I guess is the best way to say it.
And you're in a group now with a lot of different. Well, most of it is your old group.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know if you want to bounce around too much. I don't know how you want to do
we can bounce. Yeah, we don't have to do linear.
chronologically. I mean, we
We don't
just
have
went
to.
from age 16 to 43 pretty
So
quick. So
for
I don't want to. I'll let you steer the ship. I'll let you steer the ship.
well, I do want to talk a little bit about when your band starts kind of quote unquote making it within the scene, because I think
Mhm.
everything is relative, right?
Right.
Like if you think about a scene, like I'm from the Bay Area, I was telling you before, and I got to know a lot of the thrash metal guys, and listening to their stories are so interesting because they didn't have to do a lot of the touring that maybe like we did, where you get in the van and you just
Oh,
go
you
all over
got
the
to.
country, or you save up your money and you go
Mhm.
overseas, or you go to South America and all this other stuff that I've done on a extremely shoestring budget with no label support. Those guys got record deals relatively quick. I think Metallica was in like their third or fourth year of existence, and they get that Aussie tour,
Mhm.
which really breaks them. And
Yeah.
it was just a different world for those guys, and I
Right.
feel like we kind of came up maybe too late because we didn't make that get our
Like too
records
late.
out. Yeah.
Like we came up like too late to like make money off of our music, but too early to um, not get pissed off when when the internet boom came around and everything was free. So you're like right in that like sweet
Yeah.
spot of like, fuck, if it was 10 years earlier I would be a millionaire because people would have to like buy my music. But if it was 10 years later, then I wouldn't even know about that, so I wouldn't care. So like we're in that sweet spot of like where we can be, where we know about it, but we never got to actually enjoy it. So it carved me and sculpted me, and
Mhm.
I wouldn't change it for the world. I love the fact that if you wanted people to know about your band, you had to drive to their city and play for
Yes,
them.
you did.
That was it. Just makes you a harder worker, and we, right now our band prides itself on our work ethic, that we absolutely never would have gotten if we weren't 5 people that had to, like I said, get in your face if we wanted you to hear us. Everyone now is, it's almost harder because you have to compete for attention with literally everyone, with the internet. But
Yeah.
back in early 2000s, late 90s, you just had to work hard, and you had to travel more, and you had to miss more school, and you had to work real jobs less, and you take advantage of opportunities. And so you could kind of gauge your success, gauge your trajectory a little easier than you could just like nowadays. It's analytics on, well, what's the number of this, what's the number of
Yeah.
listeners, what's the number of engagements, what's the number of viewers. Like I liked the best lessons in life. I like touching the stove. You know what I mean? I like that's how I learned all my lessons the best. And so that's what it was in the late 90s, was just a lot of stove touching.
So you released the first EP in '98. What's the reaction from it, from the fans? Are you getting out? I saw. Look, I can only read about this because I wasn't there, and I'm from a whole
Yeah.
different side of the planet. It says
was
your
cool.
first show was in Canada, in Ontario.
Yeah. Okay, so Andy Williams, our guitar player, was Buried Alive's merch guy.
Oh,
And
okay.
so Buried Alive and Scott Vogel just took care of us. Like, it was great, like they gave us our first show, which was at a record store in Canada. They gave us, they're the reason we got on Ferret, because Scott gave our demo to Carl when they were on tour. Anytime we were like our first year of leaving town, whether it was Chicago or Massachusetts or Erie, I feel like Buried Alive was involved somehow. And so that is just how it should be done. That
Yeah.
is just passing your knowledge down, helping out, making the paving the way, making the path easier for the people coming up after you. And I think it's not a coincidence that Scott Vogel and Terror are in like the biggest hardcore band ever now. The guy's got great karma. He's a great person. He's very helpful, and that kind of positive energy and compassion and helpfulness, it comes back to you. And so, he's I can't say enough great things about him. I can't wait till we play shows with him again. And Every Time I Die, yeah, like you said, it would not have been, probably without Scott Vogel and Buried Alive. We probably would have just stayed in Buffalo. We had a great thing going in Buffalo, and we definitely started getting interest with this. Actually, the people that put out that 5-song was a Canadian label. So I
Oh,
think
okay.
just the fact that we played that first show at a Canadian record store is the reason we got on that label. And it just, it snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. The scene was like, it was cool because we loved that Coalesce, Dead Guy, Converge, Dillinger pop that was kind of happening. And it was weird because I always considered us a hardcore band, just because if you came from the Buffalo hardcore scene and you went to Buffalo hardcore shows and you had shirts that said Buffalo hardcore on them, and you played with other Buffalo hardcore bands, you just consider yourself Buffalo hardcore band. And obviously, as time would go on, uh, I think genres got a little bit more defined, and people started taking them a little bit more seriously, and the umbrella kind of got a little bit smaller. But I've always considered Every Time I Die a hardcore band, even though we don't sound like Terror or Buried Alive. But that's just that's how the scene was, is that Converge could come to town, play a hardcore show with hardcore bands at the hardcore venue, and you wouldn't leave being like, well, they're, they got this kind of vocals, they got this
Yeah.
kind of guitar, they got this kind of drumming. I don't know if that doesn't sound like my Mad Balls and my Youth of Today's and Sick of It Alls, and no one was really as tied to names as they may be right now. And so it was nice that we could develop and kind of stick out, and maybe that's why we were kind of we had such early success, is because we stuck out, and we were always trying to do things that weren't being done. As bad as we wanted to just be a Converge ripoff band, we also wanted to, you know, put our own spin on it. And we would just kind of cultivate that through the next couple decades.